Hey everybody, it is Eric Lucas with GG Homes here in San Diego, your favorite local real estate investor. And by now you know me as the investor that loves off-market deals and pocket listings. And if I get a consistent amount of criticism over pocket listings and off-market deals, it's often under the realm that, well, agents that allow us to buy off-market deals and pocket listings are not fulfilling their fiduciary responsibilities to their client. They're throwing their client under the bus. They're not looking out for their client's best interest, because any reputable agent would always list the deal on the MLS and try to maximize the amount of money that their client gets out of a deal. And while I completely understand that argument, and I would say in 90% of most situations, the right thing to do is to list the property on the MLS and try to maximize the amount of money your client gets, you also have the responsibility to ask yourself and ask the client what they want. So ask the client, what do they want? And sometimes the client would prefer a quick cash sale to maximizing their dollars. Now, sometimes it's not really the smartest decision, but sometimes it is. And even when it's not the smartest decision, and even when the seller is leaving money on the table, if they know that they're leaving money on the table and they'd rather have a quick cash sale, then by doing what they want, you're fulfilling your fiduciary responsibility. So I wanted to look at a few real life examples today of when sellers leave money on the table and why they actually left money on the table. So my favorite example, and by far the most ridiculous, was this one. Lately we had a agent reach out to us, and he said that the seller wanted $450 for this house because they were going to net about 50 grand after expenses and mortgages and all that. And he had told me that he would try to convince the seller to list on the MLS because he knew they would get more money that way. But this seller had lost his wife. He didn't have any kids. He was getting up there in his years. And the reason he wanted a quick cash sale is he only wanted 50 grand because he could buy a boat for 30,000, put 20 grand in the bank, and in his mind that was all he wanted. It was a sailboat. His lifelong dream was to fish and sail, and he figured he could live off the boat, and that's what he wanted to do. He had the opportunity to buy a boat that he liked for $30,000, and he thought $20,000 was a good enough padding for him. So if he could sell for $450 and net 50 grand, then that's what he wanted to do. I'm serious. This really happened to us lately. So sometimes your seller might want to buy a boat and they've got a good opportunity. So if they want to buy a boat and leave some money on the table, and you let them know, hey, you can get more if you list on the MLS, but they still want that quick cash sale so they can buy that boat. Hey, sometimes you got to do what the seller tells you to do, even if you don't think it's a smart financial decision. Scenario number 2, we're actually working on a deal like this right now where a seller had started renovations on their current property, gotten in over their heads, and realized that they really didn't want to finish the project. And another house came on the market that they really, really wanted. So they wanted to cash out of their house and buy the other house. And we're actually still in negotiations on this deal, but I think it will happen. Again, their current property is down to the studs, and the property that they want is on the market right now. So, how many buyers are going to be able to buy a house that is in the middle of a rehab? Not many. You obviously can't get financing that way. Could they list the property on the MLS and maybe drive up a bidding war between investors and get a little bit more money? Sure. But, if they really want this other property, that agent knows that we will perform. And that's why he brought us a deal. He told me, look, Eric, I know the seller wants to get this other property. They don't want to lose it. So I know you guys will close. So that's why I'm bringing you this deal. So scenario number 2, maybe they want to buy another home and their current home does not qualify for financing because it's beat up, too old, or down to the studs because they tried to do a renovation themselves and they failed. Scenario number 3. So I have a uncle, Uncle Bruce, who is not the smartest tool in the shed, and his lifelong dream was to buy a Chrysler. What was that car? Not the PT Cruiser. It was the other Chrysler, the Prowler, the Plymouth Prowler. He always wanted a Plymouth Prowler. So when a relative died and he inherited the money, he didn't want to take the time to actually list the property. He wanted to cash out so he could buy a Plymouth Prowler. Why? I don't know. It's not a very good car. And again, Uncle Bruce is not very smart. Hopefully he never sees this video, but I'm not close to him, so that probably won't happen. Now, he actually ended up buying a Corvette. So, you know, whatever. A Corvette's a better car than a Prowler, but still not a very smart idea to do a fire sale on a property that you just inherited so you can buy a car, which is an appreciating asset. Regardless, this really happened, and that's what he wanted to do. So he quickly sold the property that he inherited so he could buy a car. Whatever, it was his choice, and he was very happy with it, so good for him. On a similar note, inheritance, and that is subject number 4. And we see this all the time. So I often talk about how in areas like Claremont, you know, the difference between selling to us and selling on the MLS is usually about 50 grand, right? We might pay $450 for a Claremont property that would sell for about $500,000 on the MLS. So why would a seller take a $50,000 haircut to sell quickly to an investor when they could probably find another cash buyer on the MLS with only a little bit more time? And that can be, well, what if 3, 4, 5, 6, or 8 people are inheriting the property? And we see that all the time. If a single person is inheriting the property, then $50,000 is a lot of money. But if you've got 6 people inheriting the property, then 50,000 divided 6 ways is less than 10 grand a person. They might quickly just want to sell that property and, you know, cash out and be done with it. And I'll make it personal. This actually happened in my family as well. When my grandmother died, she had 3 remaining children: my mom, my aunt, and my uncle. It was a house in Florida, and what we ended up doing is we listed the property with a realtor, and they had offers on the MLS, but the realtor also said, hey, look, I can get you this cash offer. Do you want it? My family discussed it, and they ended up taking the cash offer because it was less hassle. So again, I'll make it personal. You know, when I get criticism for saying, oh, you guys are ripping off your clients, look, my own personal family was in this situation where they were inheriting the property, and the best thing to do was to take the quick cash offer. Did they leave a little money on the table? Sure they did. But, you know, it wasn't worth the headache to collect the extra money. So again, this is a scenario we see all the time here in San Diego, especially when there's multiple people inheriting the property, is sometimes it's just best to get it done with. And while $50,000 might be a lot to an individual, again, when you divide it 3, 4, 5, 6, or we've seen up to 8 or 10 different ways, then that kind of becomes insignificant. So, especially for the convenience of a quick cash sale. Last but not least is foreclosure. And this is one of Bruce Norris's favorite examples. You know, if you've got a client in foreclosure and you want to have them save their credit and get some money before the foreclosure sale, sometimes it really is in the client's best interest to just sell to an investor that you trust, that you know is going to close and not play games. Because when you list it on the MLS and you try to get them the highest amount of money, well, then you have people trying to tie up the property and wholesale it. You've got investors that can't perform. Sometimes, you know, multiple offers is not a good thing because you have to sort through and see who is legitimate. But if you've got an investor that you trust and that investor is willing to pay a fair price for the property, I don't think that is violating your fiduciary responsibility by directing your buyer or your seller to that preferred investor if you know that investor is going to close. And this is one of Bruce Norris's favorite points when he justifies why pocket listings are legal and are ethical if done correctly. So why would a seller leave money on the table? Here are 5 quick real-life examples. And when you're dealing with sellers who are in situations like this, just simply ask them, would you prefer a quick cash sale or would you prefer more money? And if they would rather have a quick cash sale, then you have fulfilled your fiduciary responsibility and you can then shop that property to your preferred investor or investors guilt-free, knowing that you asked your seller and your seller chose that quick cash sale. And sometimes a quick cash sale is in their best interest. And if it's not, but they choose it anyway because they want to buy a boat, hey, guess what? You disclosed, you did your part, it's on them. They want the quick cash and they want to leave money on the table, that was their decision. So again, Eric Lucas with GG Homes here in San Diego. And of course, if you've got an off-market deal or pocket listing, we would love to buy it. So give me a call. My cell phone is 602-570-7207, and we would love to work with you on your next off-market deal or pocket listing. Take care.